could have whooped you if you hadn't tripped me.
The Beverly Hillbillies.
When I was little, every time school ended, I would run to my neighbour uncle's house, the place with the only black and white TV in the whole neighbourhood. The room was sweltering hot. The antenna crackled zet-zet like it wanted to argue with the whole world. But as soon as the opening melody of the Beverly Hillbillies played, we all immediately sat perfectly still, eyes glued to the speckled, noisy screen. None of us cared about ratings or scripts. We only waited for Granny to get angry, for Jethro to be silly, and for laughter to spread across the room. When I grew up, I realised those seemingly simple scenes actually had a behind-the-scenes that was not simple at all. Believe me, you will be surprised, Irene Ryan. Granny really did hit Max Baer Jr. directly on the head in most scenes. And Buddy Ebsen. He openly sabotaged Nancy Culp's election campaign. And the most shocking fact, the Beverly Hillbillies was terminated from television broadcast exactly when it was still in the nationwide top ratings, a cut no one could understand. So today, let's open the door to those years again to discover 20 strange secrets. 20. Buddy Ebsen openly sabotaged Nancy Culp's election campaign. Viewers often assumed the cast got along as harmoniously as on screen, but between Buddy Ebsen and Nancy Culp, there was always an unnamed distance. Real tension erupted when Culp announced she was running for Congress. Everyone thought Hollywood politeness would prevail until Buddy suddenly went on a radio show and said bluntly, "I don't believe Nancy is suitable for that position." The host, startled, turned to him. "You really want that sentence to go on air?" Buddy just shrugged. "I say what I think." When Culp listened to the broadcast, she stayed silent for a few seconds, then only said, "I will remember this." A technician recalled, "The atmosphere that day was so heavy that anyone walking by slowed down." In 1960s, Hollywood, a cast member publicly opposing a colleague was almost unheard of. A crew member remembered Culp's eyes. She was calm, but you could tell she was hurt. The news spread through the hallways in less than an afternoon. From that day on, their relationship never healed. 19. Granny really did smack Jethro on the set. If you ever watched the Beverly Hillbillies, you surely remember the bop sound every time Granny slammed the wooden ladle onto Jethro's head. What the audience never expected was, those were real hits. Irene Ryan, who played Granny, did not use any special effects or soft padding. Max Baer Jr. was the one who suggested it. "Just swing straight, I can take it." Ryan laughed. "You said it yourself." The director often had to remind Irene a bit gentler, but as soon as the camera rolled, she swung her arm cleanly and decisively, making the sound ring out solid and sharp. The whole set often burst into laughter because it felt as real as a documentary. A cameraman remembered forever the scene where Max rubbed his head and joked, "A few more episodes and I'll qualify for boxing." Ryan replied casually, "The character is strict, the audience must believe it." Back then, everything was recorded directly. The sound of wood hitting a head, heavy breathing footsteps, all were 100% real audio. One cameraman said that despite her small figure, Ryan's wrist was strangely strong, each swing clean as if measured with a ruler. That raw authenticity made viewers feel close, and from those seemingly funny smacks, the crew began entering a series of behind-the-scenes stories far stranger. 18. The filming location was extremely cheap, only $500 USD per day. Have you ever wondered where the Hillbillies mansion really was? It wasn't in Beverly Hills, but in Bel Air, rented with one strict condition. Absolutely do not reveal the address. The production team agreed immediately. Completely discreet. The rental fee was only about $500 USD per day, unbelievably cheap for such a mansion. But the secret didn't last. Neighbours began noticing equipment trucks showing up every week. A security guard said someone came asking, "Is this where they film Hillbillies?" I had to pretend I was fixing a lock to escape. Things got out of control when word of mouth spread. Fans gathered outside the gate daily. The homeowner complained I rented it out for quiet, not to turn it into a tourist spot. The crew had to constantly change the schedule to avoid crowds. One day, the director urged shoot fast before they show up again. A lighting crew member said, "We had never filmed a scene that fast." 17. Why Beverly Hillbillies was terminated even while leading the ratings. I always wondered, how could a #1 show be erased? The CBS meeting at the time was calm, but a few short sentences determined the fate of the entire series. One executive placed a report on the table and said, "We must target the young urban demographic." Someone else objected. "But rural-style shows still dominate ratings." The cold response, "But they don't fit the new market." A few days later, CBS internally began using the phrase rural purge, a cleansing of all rural-themed shows regardless of success. Hillbillies was grouped with Green Acres and Petticoat Junction. A writer recalled, "We were discussing the next season's plot when the cancellation notice arrived." A crew member sighed. No one believed a top show could be erased just because it didn't fit the new image. It was the era when American television shifted toward a modern urban tone, and many in the industry saw the decision as a forced turn, completely disconnected from the audience's affection for the show. 16. The fastest climb to #1 in television history. On the day the first episode aired, CBS only expected it to stay stable for a few weeks. No one expected an explosion waiting ahead. The rating report of week 3 arrived, and the control room fell silent. The Beverly Hillbillies had jumped straight to #1. A coordinator said, "I thought the meter was broken." Someone looked again and said, "No malfunction." It's real. Ironically, this happened just shortly after the assassination of President Kennedy. Many worried America was too sorrowful for comedy. But the data showed the opposite. A production supervisor recalled they needed something light to breathe. Hillbillies accidentally became emotional shelter. When the news reached the set, Max Baer Jr. was holding a coffee cup and burst out, "3 weeks and we're #1. Did we teleport?" Buddy Ebsen replied, "No." Just perfect timing. The rapid success forced CBS to rearrange its schedule, and the writers exclaimed, "Maintaining this pace is the real challenge, because even we don't understand how it rose this fast." 15. Max Baer Jr. sued CBS for using the character's name without permission. Everything started very unexpectedly. Baer was driving in Nevada when he saw a big sign that read, "Jethro's." He braked hard, stepped out to look closely, and muttered, "CBS never asked me about this." When he reviewed the contract, Baer discovered that the character's name was being used as a business brand without his consent, and the lawsuit was immediately filed. A lawyer said, "The core issue wasn't just the name, but turning the image of Jethro into an exploitable asset without permission." Things became even more chaotic when part of Season 1 and early Season 2 fell into the public domain, because CBS forgot to renew the copyright. This opened the door for a flood of cheap DVDs appearing in flea markets, many even replacing the original music because they couldn't afford the rights. One distributor casually said, "The law allows it, so we do it." Baer couldn't swallow the frustration. In a meeting, he stated clearly, "That name is attached to me for life. I have the right to control where it appears." The incident forced CBS to recheck all legal files, and while they were struggling with this mess, another secret of the series resurfaced. 14. The oil discovery scene was completely wrong scientifically. The scene where Jed shoots into the ground and oil bursts upward used to be considered an iconic opener. But every time the geology advisors mentioned it, they burst into laughter. One expert once said directly in a meeting, "Oil does not sit right under a hillside like that." The director only shrugged. "I know. But the audience likes it, and it fits the rhythm of the opening." In reality, crude oil usually appears on continental shelves, deserts, or large sedimentary basins. A technician remembered the first discussion. "Should we make it a bit more realistic?" The writer responded immediately. The audience needs a surprise in the very first minute. To create the effect, the crew prepared a black mixture pumped through underground pipes buried under fake soil. When the director shouted, "Pump!" the liquid shot up forcefully, looking real. One test went too far, and the crew got bathed in black from head to toe. Max Baer Jr. looked at the chaos and joked, "If this were real oil, we'd all be rich." The effects supervisor replied, "I wish that were true." Although scientifically wrong, that detail became a symbol of the show, and those wrong but still do it decisions were only the beginning of many strange things, including the fact that one actress appeared in 15 episodes, yet still almost invisible to the audience. 13. Sharon Tate appeared in 15 episodes, but the audience almost never recognized her. When reviewing the cast records, I was shocked to see Sharon Tate's name listed 15 times under minor roles. Interestingly, most viewers had no idea she ever appeared in the show. The reason is simple. Tate wore a brown wig, discreet makeup, and costumes that made her look nothing like the glamorous image people remembered later. A crew member said, "She walked into the set, and I had to look twice to be sure it was Sharon." While filming, Sharon always kept a calm attitude. The director once asked, "Do you want to change your hairstyle to be more recognizable?" She only smiled, "No need, as long as the scene works." After the Manson tragedy years later, several crew members suddenly remembered they had worked with Tate far more than they realized. A writer said, "She was like the wind, passed by without a sound." When reviewing old footage, many crew members paused for a long time at her scenes. One whispered, "Even in a minor role, she still shone." This shows how television history sometimes hides familiar faces right in front of us we just don't notice. Next time you rewatch old episodes, try spotting where Tate appears. 12. The first season fell into the public domain due to a small oversight. It sounds unbelievable, but the entire first season fell into the public domain simply because they forgot to file the paperwork. During a file review, a young lawyer discovered the copyright renewal page was left blank. He ran into the meeting room shouting, "We didn't submit the renewal." The department head slowly asked, "You mean the first season is in the public domain?" The lawyer only nodded. Consequences came quickly. Several small companies immediately released cheap DVD editions, each with different covers and inconsistent audio quality. One distributor said bluntly, "The law allows it, that's it." What made it worse was that the original soundtrack could not be used in many copies, distorting the viewing experience. A technician said, "I tried playing one. The music was replaced by cheap-sounding guitar." CBS had to frantically review all files. A manager said, "We spent an entire week looking for the cause, then realized the responsible staff member took a day off right on the filing deadline." A small mistake, but one that created years of consequences. 11. The role that sealed his career. The curse named Jethro. The character Jethro made Max Baer Jr. famous, but at the same time locked his career inside a fixed frame. After the series, almost every casting invitation rejected him because the audience will laugh the moment he steps out. One representative said directly, "They don't see you. They only see Jethro," Baer replied. "But I'm not limited to one type of character." In one audition, the director watched a few scenes and said, "You really act well, but the shadow of Jethro is too big." "I'm afraid the audience won't adjust." Baer stayed silent. "I can't change this face." The deadlock piled up until he switched direction to writing, directing and producing. A colleague said, "Max said, if they won't give me a new role, I'll create one for myself." And he really did. Baer's story became a classic Hollywood example of the price of fame. Sometimes one successful role kills every other opportunity. Baer was grateful for Jethro, but he also understood that to keep living in the industry, he had to carve out a new path for himself. 10. Raymond Bailey. Mr. Drysdale and the Quiet Alzheimer's Disease. The change in Raymond Bailey was not obvious to the audience, but the crew saw it little by little. In the final seasons, he began forgetting his marks, forgetting lines, even forgetting when the camera was rolling. One time, the director reminded Raymond, "It's your scene." He looked around and asked softly, "Which segment am I in?" The assistant had to explain each detail, like guiding a new actor. Despite declining health, Bailey still tried to maintain the polite demeanour of Mr. Drysdale. A colleague said, "He was very self-respecting. He didn't want anyone to see him weak. There were days he repeated one line 3 times. The director said gently, "It's okay, we'll shoot from the start." Bailey nodded with a light smile, but his eyes were full of exhaustion. Eventually, the disease progressed so much that the crew had to let him retire earlier than planned. A lighting technician recalled, "He walked up to each person to say goodbye, as if trying to keep everyone's faces in his memory. In the last years of his life, he lived quietly far from the set that had once been his second home." To many viewers, the image of Mr. Drysdale remains one of the unforgettable symbols. If you have any memories of this character, leave a comment under the video. 9. The Clampett family was actually hidden billionaires. Many people watching the Beverly Hillbillies think the Clampett family were just country folks who happened to become rich. But if converted to today's value, they were shockingly wealthy. The 25 million USD in 1962 equals about 250 million USD today. Near the end of the series, the writers increased their wealth to 100 million USD, almost 850 million USD in current value. One writer recalled, "We had to ask each other, how would a family from the mountains behave with nearly $1 billion? A producer suggested, don't change anything. The mismatch is what creates comedy, and that became the direction. Jed still wore old clothes, Granny still used the chipped pot, and Jethro showed off his math skills in a way only he understood. A props worker once suggested upgrading the furniture to match their wealth, but the director dismissed it. Leave it. The mismatch makes the show charming." Interestingly, most viewers back then had no idea how rich they really were, because million-dollar figures were hard to imagine at the time. Only when adjusted for inflation did people realise the Clampetts were actually one of the first super-rich families on American television. 8. Buddy Ebsen. A far bigger career than most people thought before becoming Jed Clampett. Buddy Ebsen had a long artistic journey across many eras. He had danced on Broadway stages, appeared in Breakfast at Tiffany's, been part of the Twilight Zone, and was even the movement inspiration for Mickey Mouse. Walt Disney once told him in a test session, "The way you move is very different. I want to put it into this new character." Few people know that Ebsen was originally chosen to play the Tin Man in The Wizard of Oz, but the aluminum powder in the makeup caused severe breathing problems. When the doctor required him to stop immediately, he only said, "I still want to continue, but if I can't, then I accept it." MGM had to replace him, creating one of Hollywood's legendary almost roles. After Hillbillies, Ebsen did not step back. He continued with great success as Detective Barnaby Jones for 8 consecutive seasons, an impressive feat for an actor already famous in the previous decade. One director commented, Buddy had something rare endurance and the ability to reinvent himself. Looking at his entire career, he was one of the rare artists who moved from the pre-television era into the modern television age while keeping his own distinct style. 7. Donna Douglas. Ellie Mae beat more than 500 candidates to win the role. The casting session for Ellie Mae Clampett lasted so long that the recruitment team had to rotate shifts because they were too exhausted. More than 500 people auditioned. But when Donna Douglas walked in, the room suddenly fell silent. She smiled and said casually, "I'm used to taking care of livestock in real life. Do you want me to hold a chicken or a pig first?" One director looked at a colleague and whispered, "No need to search anymore. This is it." Douglas came from a poor family in Louisiana. The perfect background for the Ellie Mae character. When trying the scene of petting animals, she handled them so naturally that the trainer laughed. "I guess I'm not needed today." Those who watched the audition tape said Douglas had that effortless authenticity, bright eyes, a natural stance, not acting like she was acting. When the final decision was made, the producer simply said, "She makes viewers like her from the first second." The role put Douglas on magazine covers everywhere, but she remained simple and down to earth. A crew member remembered the break time scene. She walked around the set carrying cats and dogs like she was in her own yard. That success opened the door for many other interesting stories, especially the fact that the media at the time hated the show to an unbelievable degree. 6. The age rumour. That was completely misunderstood. The rumour that Granny was actually younger than Ellie Mae spread for years among fan clubs, especially back when there was no internet to fact-check anything. Some people even insisted they must have just done the makeup for fun. Granny doesn't look that old at all, but the truth was, nowhere near that rumour, Irene Ryan, who played Granny, was actually 31 years older than Donna Douglas. The confusion began with the way Ryan worked. On set, she moved so quickly that one assistant once exclaimed, "She runs faster than the young actors." During one scene where Granny was supposed to get angry, the director joked, "Irene, if you keep this up, the kids won't be able to keep pace with you." She simply replied, "As long as I've got the strength, I'll keep performing." Her sharpness and energy often made viewers think she was aging backwards. Meanwhile, Donna Douglas, with her bright face, natural charm, and innocent acting style, often made people assume she was very young, even though she was already over 30 when the show began. A crew member remembered Donna looked like she had just reached her 20s. Standing next to Irene, the real age gap became even harder to guess. Back then, newspapers didn't help either. They loved highlighting Donna's beauty, but rarely mentioned the actress's real ages, unintentionally giving the impression that the age difference was much smaller than it actually was. When a reporter once asked Irene about the rumour, she just burst into laughter. "If I were as young as Donna, Hollywood would have to build a statue of me." And so the rumour lived on, stubborn and persistent. But the truth, as always, was much simpler. And from this small story alone, you can already tell the behind-the-scenes world of the Beverly Hillbillies was full of things far stranger than anyone imagined. 5. Jethro. Even played his own twin sister. The character, Jethro's twin sister, actually started as a joke in the writer's room. Someone said, "Imagine Max wearing a dress." Everyone burst into laughter. Then suddenly someone suggested, "Why don't we just film it?" So Bear walked out wearing a long, rural dress, a curly wig, and spoke in a high voice. "I feel ridiculously silly." The director responded immediately, "Good. The sillier the better." Bear got into the role so much that the crew had to remind him to take breaks. One time he laughed, "If my mother sees this, she'll probably change the house locks." Jethrine's voice was not done by Bear, but dubbed by Linda Henning. She said, "Max handled the body, I handled the voice." Together, we created a character that simply could not be taken seriously. The costume was sewn so rushed that the tailor warned, "Walk gently 1 tier, and it's over." During filming, the crew laughed so much they had to stop the camera repeatedly. A cameraman said, "When Max did that, Jethrine's sideways glance, none of us could keep a straight face." Nowadays, one actor playing 2 roles is normal, but in the 60s, when technology was limited, it was complicated, exhausting. And Max Bear Jr. turned it into one of the series' most memorable comedic bits. 4. The secret of Sonny's real surname, something never revealed to Sonny. Drysdale appeared quite often in the series, but one thing puzzled fans for decades. What was her real surname? In the script, her personality, relationships and role were clear. But when it came to full name, the writers left it blank. Someone asked, "What surname should we give her?" The team leader replied, "No need, leave it." The reason wasn't to create mystery, but because the writing team wanted Sonny to remain floating half-snobby socialite, half free-spirited. not tied to any family except her father, Mr. Drysdale. An editor recalled, "Adding a surname would create a whole series of unnecessary questions. Sunny is a personality colour, not a family lineage." When viewers noticed the oddity letters poured into CBS asking, "What is Sunny's last name English-German? One word or two?" The answer CBS sent back was very short. No surname. Even actors on set laughed and discussed it. One said, "From start to finish, this character doesn't need a surname, she only needs attitude." 3. Frank Inn, the man who controlled the whole zoo behind Ellie Mae. Almost every animal that appeared in the show, from dogs, cats, raccoons, to even a kangaroo, was trained by Frank Inn. He never stood in front of the camera, but nearly every moment Ellie Mae petted or interacted with animals depended on his direction. When preparing to film a scene involving a kangaroo, an assistant worried, "Will it stay still?" Inn simply said, "Let me talk to it." During the scene, he bent down and whispered, "Stand here, look to the left." The director, watching the monitor, asked, "How does he make them obey like that?" A crew member explained, "He never uses strong commands, just a soft voice and treats hidden in his sleeve." Donna Douglas once said, "If Frank weren't supporting off-camera, I wouldn't know how to handle the raccoon." One time, a cat ran off into the parking area. The whole crew panicked. Inn simply said, "Leave it to me." A few dozen seconds later, he came back carrying it as if nothing had happened. If Ellie Mae made viewers believe animals truly loved her, it was thanks to a man standing outside the camera frame, always whispering into each animal's ear. 2. The Barbie, Ellie Mae lawsuit, Donna Douglas versus Mattel. The story began when Donna Douglas saw a new doll on a toy shelf, Ellie Mae Barbie. The box had a black and white image of her, but without any permission. Douglas said, "I looked closely and had to say, 'Wait, why is my face here?' Her lawyer confirmed they did not ask you. Mattel explained that they only based the product on the character, not the personal likeness. In a meeting, a company representative said, "We respect Miss Donna, but this is a character-based product." Douglas's lawyer immediately countered, "If so, why is her photograph on the box?" That question silenced the room and the lawsuit was officially filed. A crew member remembered Donna didn't like drama. She just felt it was unfair. When the story reached the press, many assumed Mattel would fight until the end. But eventually, the two sides chose a private settlement. The final terms were never revealed. Although resolved quietly, this became one of the rare cases in which an actor from the series directly confronted a giant toy company. 1. The Hillbillies Casino Dream. The ambition of Max Baer Jr. Max Baer Jr. was not only associated with the role of Jethro, he held part of the commercial rights to the Beverly Hillbillies. From there, a bold idea formed to build a Hillbillies-themed casino right in Nevada with a 200-foot oil derrick as the symbol. In the presentation meeting, Baer said, "I want people to walk in and immediately know this is Hillbillies." One investor asked, "You mean a real oil derrick?" Baer nodded. The more real, the more it attracts. The project gained major attention. But to turn it into reality, Baer had to chase permits, negotiate land, and convince local authorities. One official said, "The idea is good, but the oil derrick must be reconsidered." Baer smiled. Without the derrick, it wouldn't be Hillbillies. Alongside the casino project, Baer also pursued another plan, obtaining the rights to Madonna's Like a Virgin for a dark comedy film he wrote. Although the casino never came to life as he wished, his ambition showed Baer never wanted to live off a single role. He always wanted to create something bigger, even if it meant stepping into territories Hollywood and Nevada had never touched. And those are the strangest secrets behind the Beverly Hillbillies. If you ever watched this show back in the black and white TV days, or if any detail in this video surprised you, leave a comment below. I really want to hear your story. Remember to like, subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss the next episode. Thank you for watching. See you in the next video.